touch on the question of latency. Yeah, so that is one sort of the downsides of having an encrypted mempool, I would say, is that slight added latency essentially, which we think is actually necessary. There's a good article from Phil Diane from Flashbots about geographical decentralization and how it relates to latency. So if you try to really go beyond, if you try to have something that's ultra fast latency, at some point you are sacrificing geographical decentralization, right? Because you're cutting off people. Let's say if your sequencer is running in the US, but you'll have participants in Asia, just the network round trip latency at some point then makes it so that certain actors are prioritized versus others. So you're sacrificing geographical decentralization if you go below a certain latency. Yeah, so we think actually the latency is actually necessary for geographic decentralization, and we're doing everything to keep it as efficient as possible. I think we're currently around sort of 5 seconds of latency of this decryption step. And that only affects execution latency. So inclusion latency is not affected. So you still can get the instant inclusion transaction receipt as a user from the sequencer. And then 5 seconds later, you'll get the actual result of the transaction. So we think it's actually not a big deal. It's something that I actually talk about quite a lot as a trade-off, but we think in practice is not a big deal. And again, looking at the bigger picture, we shouldn't even go below 4 seconds essentially of latency, because then you really start to sacrifice geographical decentralization.